Colton Herta has taken the next step in his Formula One aspirations. He has been signed by McLaren as a test driver. Now, what does this mean for not only Herta's future, Andretti Autosport's, McLaren's, Pato Award? We've got a lot to talk about. Plus, the Milwaukee Mile may be replacing Texas Motor Speedway in 2023, and NASCAR may be making changes at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And welcome back. Sorry I've been gone for a few days. Certainly, I've been kind of gas pedal to the metal on this channel recently or in recent months. And I guess just after St. Pete, I had to take a few days off. No problem, no issue. Just felt like kind of taking it easy for a little while there because not only had I been on the gas for so long, but starting this week, the channel is going to get so busy over the next couple of months, and we're starting it off with a bang. We're going to Sebring International Raceway for World Endurance Championship and IMSA coverage at Super Sebring. And then I'm getting on a plane and flying to Texas Motor Speedway to cover the second IndyCar race of the year. And then it's going to be on to Long Beach, and then the Indy 500 test, and then, of course, the month of May and all that goes along with that. I hope you'll be along with me on that, but let's focus a little bit because there's some major news that has broken in the last couple of days that we need to talk about. And I guess we'll start with the Colton Herta F1 deal. If you haven't heard yet, McLaren announced this weekend that Colton Herta has signed with the team, their Formula One team, as a test driver. Now, he'll be testing a 2021 car later on this season. Now, there's no plans currently for him to drive a current Formula One car, though this would seem to indicate that there are some plans, obviously, for Colton Herta to go to Formula One within the next couple of years. And really what we're going to do is kind of break down the possibilities and what this means, because obviously I think a lot of people expected, and I think even the Andrettis expect, that Colton Herta will be, assuming that it's approved, an Andretti Global Formula One driver in 2024. However, Zach Brown has stepped in with McLaren, and we've got a very complicated situation here now. So let's look at the basics, because I think there's two ways you can look at this. Number one, you can look at this as Zach Brown is helping Michael Andretti out a little bit by helping Colton Herta get some Formula One seat time, and supposedly it's kind of unclear right now what kind of super license points, if any, could be gained through this testing. One of the requirements to obtain a super license is 300 kilometers of testing a recent Formula One car. The definitions of what that means and whether that distance has to be completed in an FP1 session versus a private test, that seems to be debated. For whatever reason, the FIA makes this more difficult than it needs to be, but that's the FIA. The key point is that you need 40 points to go to Formula One. And the only way to do that in IndyCar is to place highly in the championship, because the other positions that aren't 1, 2, 3 don't pay diddly squat for points. But really the only one that'll get you there immediately is winning the championship, which is worth 40 points in the FIA's licensing system. So Herta can make this really easy on himself by winning a championship in the next couple of years. And again, I personally, and it's not like I want to be very clear. I know you guys know that I'm able to speak to Herta pretty easily. I know what he's going to tell me and what he's not going to tell me. And I haven't exactly been like badgering him for information because I know he's not going to give it to me. So I don't want to sound like I'm speaking for him, okay? My speculation is that Herta, no matter who he's going to Formula One with, probably is not going to be in Formula One until 2024. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one reason, his current contract with Andretti Autosport, as far as I'm aware, goes for 2 more seasons, so 22 and 23. 24 is where his contract will be renegotiated with Andretti Autosport, also conveniently when Andretti Autosport was planning on entering Formula One. Now, here's where things get a little bit more complicated. McLaren Formula One has, of course, 2 drivers under, I guess, what they call long-term contracts these days, if you consider 2 years a long-term contract. Now, Lando Norris, I think, is set for a lot longer than Daniel Ricciardo is. Daniel Ricciardo's contract is a 2-year deal. 22 season, 23 season. Comes up at the end of 24. My thought right now is that Zach Brown holds an awful lot of cards to Mr. Big Chungus. If he can hold that carrot out in front of Colton Herta and also deliver, because that's the thing, ultimately, and it's not like Andretti Autosport hasn't tried to deliver the opportunity for Formula One and Colton Herta to get together. But they haven't been able to deliver it. Zach Brown is going to put Colton Herta in a Formula One car this year, one from the last 2 years. And my thought process is, and we'll see if it's wrong, but I think Zach Brown's playing a bit of a long game with Colton Herta. Let's say Herta goes out and wins the championship, has his 40 super license points, and is ready to go next year or this year. If Zach gets in the testing time in a Formula One car, and in particular, if you think about it, I think the new testing rules allow a year-old car. So next year, the current rule Formula One car will be available for Herta to test. So Herta can drive that car next year in addition to his IndyCar duties. And then when Daniel Ricciardo's contract comes up, assuming Herta performs in the Formula One car and does the job driving for Andretti Autosport in IndyCar, I would begin to think that a seat will potentially be available to him. Now, I'm looking pretty far down the road, and I know some people don't like when I look that far down the road, but that's kind of where I see things right now. The other interesting part of this is Pato O'Ward, because I think a lot of people from the outside kind of looked at Pato O'Ward and said, oh, of course, he's the heir apparent to McLaren Formula One. And I know Pato wants to go to Formula One. He's made no secret about it. He's been very public about that. And he did get a test this season, or last December. The thing is, Pato O'Ward is at a contract year this year. And there was an article just today that Pato may not come back to Arrow McLaren SP. Now, we'll see on that one. That's interesting because you do have to kind of think that Pato O'Ward's feeling a little bit miffed that they brought someone in from the outside to take on the Formula One testing duties. And depending on how hard those feelings are, we may see Pato O'Ward dip and go to another IndyCar team. However, if the bridge isn't burned and Pato, let's say, signs a 2-year contract, well, that also puts him at that 2024 kind of convergence point that everybody seems to have their contracts starting to head towards. There's a potential that Zach Brown could hold the keys to 2 of the most proven North American talented drivers in the world right now, Pato O'Ward and Colton Herta. So there's some interesting stuff happening here, and I think this silly season is going to be really silly because I think Penske potentially is going to be looking to fill one of their cars. We know Andretti pretty much is going to fill the seat that is currently occupied by Alexander Rossi. I think Alexander Rossi is going to go to a different team. There's always the potential of Ganassi. I think Kirkwood's on a 1-year deal with AJ Foyt. There's going to be a lot of balls in the air this silly season. I know we're not even to race 2, and we're already talking about this, but I think it's going to be a major story to follow this year. Let's talk about another major potential 2023 story, and that is that the Milwaukee Mile may well be coming back to IndyCar racing in 2023. Now, this has been a rumor that had been going around the paddock. I first heard about it in St. Petersburg from one of my most trusted sources, and then I backed that source up with an actual contact I have that has really deep connections to the Milwaukee Mile, and they confirmed that, yes, work is being done to bring the Texas Motor Speedway IndyCar race to Milwaukee in 2023. Obviously, a very historic facility. And the interesting part was that I was originally planning on putting this out on Sunday night for my Texas Motor Speedway thing, but I made the mistake of teasing it on Twitter, and then all of a sudden, everybody knew about Milwaukee. But I think one of the most interesting quotes was from Adam Stern, who asked Mark Miles about it, and Mark Miles gave him a no comment. So, yeah, for sure, this is something, again, I've known about for a while, and absolutely this is real. This is in the works. We'll see. I would personally be very happy if the Milwaukee Mile came back. I think it's a traditional venue. I think not only is it a traditional venue, but it's a venue that works really well with Indy cars. It's independent from NASCAR, which is hugely important right now with NASCAR's propensity, or NASCAR-affiliated tracks' propensity to put the traction crap down and take away a good second groove for IndyCar. I think the one problem, and I think it's obvious what the one problem is that you already have a race in Wisconsin at Road America, which is very successful. My opinion is that the Midwest fan base for IndyCar is strong enough that I think you'd be able to pull off 2 races at 2 different tracks in Wisconsin. I mean, you look at it, you raced at Indianapolis 3 times in 1 year. And I know it's Indianapolis, it's a little bit different, but the way I look at it, fans have been begging for Milwaukee to come back for so long. I think there's a desire for it. It looks like the Texas Motor Speedway relationship is getting icier and icier by the day, and I think the PJ1 was really the nail in the coffin. I think Eddie Gossage leaving was another nail, a big nail in that. We'll see. I mean, I think the other negative is that IndyCar would be reduced to 1 high-speed oval, and that would be the Indianapolis 500. And I would really like to see more ovals, first of all, but in particular, I'd like to see some sort of an effort made at a track where you need the super speedway wings, whether that's Michigan, whether it's Fontana, whether it's Pocono, somewhere. And I know at least one of those tracks, you guys know that there's some things that need to be rectified before you go back there. But maybe Kansas, because it's like the one last 1.5 miler out there that really hasn't been messed with too much. I don't know. We'll have to see. But just, again, kind of telling you, Milwaukee, IndyCar, there's irons in the fire. We're going to see if those irons actually come to fruition, though. I would like to see it. It's a little bit disappointing that it comes at the expense of Texas, because Texas has been around for, 27 years at this point. It's not like it's a insignificant relationship with IndyCar, but it's one that seems to not be working at the moment. And finally, just a real quick note today, Connor Daly, was testing for Team Penske and their Xfinity car at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and they ran the F1 road course. Now, they only tested in the morning. It was pretty brief. They wrapped it up before lunchtime. And there's not a ton of information out there about it. I didn't get wind of it early enough, and ultimately, by the time I kind of went over there to snoop at the Speedway, they were already packing things up. But I think the big thing is that, they're testing different layouts for the NASCAR race. Now, I asked around a little bit. No IndyCar. Don't expect IndyCar to be running the Formula One layout. I agree with you. I'm seeing the comments scrolling by right now. I agree with you. That doesn't change the facts. It doesn't sound like this is for IndyCar whatsoever. They're testing this for stock cars, and that's because the stock cars, as we found out last year, did not get along with the temporary curbs at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So, there's not much to say about that. Obviously, Penske is able to test his cars at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, not whenever he wants, because I know some people have been like, well, what about the testing ban? Well, I guarantee you, as a track owner, Roger probably has a lot more leeway with NASCAR to be able to say, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, we're not using a full-time driver, we're not a full-time team, we're not getting any benefit from this. The only thing you're benefiting from is hopefully a better show. We'll see in July what what layout they end up using at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for NASCAR. But that's a long way off, and there's a lot more things that are more pressing, like Sebring and like Texas. So thank you guys so much for watching. Again, busy week ahead. Hope you guys will be sticking with me and watching all the good content. We'll see you in the next video.